Have you heard the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover? But that's what people do, right? We judge everything by outward appearances. In my experience, a great album cover can make or break the decision on whether I buy an album. So go on a journey with me as we look at some great album cover designs and talk about why I believe that you need a personal designer for your album artwork. This is Judged by the Cover. Hey, and welcome to the Judged by the Cover podcast. I'm Josh.
Hey, I'm Phil.
And it has been way too long since we've done this. Crazy summer. I know your summer has been crazy, but it feels good. It feels good to be back in the studio. Good to be sitting in front of the camera with y'all.
Yeah, I think so. It's like fall. Kind of, we're getting a little bit into that cooler weather.
Yeah.
It's like, we should be back doing this.
Right. And yeah, it was crazy. There were people wearing like hoodies and long sleeve shirts this morning at work, and I'm just like, what are you guys doing?
Relax, guys.
It's not that cold.
And then it was like 85.
Yeah. This is I think what they call Fool's Fall.
Yeah. And then when I was a kid, they would call it like Indian summer. You thought you were in fall, but then the warm weather would come back.
Yeah. Well, we didn't come to talk about the weather. So we've got a fun one today. This is actually a Phil Highland recommendation. We'll give you the name and everything here in a minute, but you'll get to check it out for a second. But as always, I kind of like to just start this off with maybe some new music news. And, a few months ago, it's probably been a lot longer than a few months. We talked about how cool it is for artists, whether you're a pop artist or hip hop artist and stuff like that, to make country music. That's kind of been one of the biggest trends of 2024. And there is one notable name that has recently put out an album. And I say recently, it's probably been a couple months now too. But Post Malone dropped his album F1 Trillion. And then there's also the Long Bed edition.
That's hilarious.
We may have to talk about the cover art on those albums because it's actually, I like it.
I love F1 Trillion.
F1
Trillion
says
everything. That is ridiculous. That's a great title.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I held off on listening to this album because, a few months ago, Beyonce dropped her country song and she dropped a country album. I didn't listen to the album just based off of the single that came out. But this album, I held off from listening to it because, I don't know, I didn't want to just be like a bandwagon kind of person. But Phil, I know you're not a big country guy, but this is legitimately a country album.
I can't wait. Like when I have a friend recommend an album like so enthusiastically, I'm going to listen to it. I already like what Post Malone's doing. I saw his interview on Joe Rogan. I fell in love with the guy.
Dude, and I think I have unfairly judged the man on his past because he was kind of a hellion thug when he kind of burst into the scene. But the dude's gotten sober, and he is just...
Is he sober?
100%. He had a kid.
What?
He has a daughter now, and he's like,
hats off.
He had to get sober because of her, and so
I love that.
But he is just a very polite human being.
Yes,
and he seems like he's legit.
In the Rogan interview, he was pounding the Bud Lights, and I don't endorse Bud Light. I'm on the Kid Rock camp on that. But dude, he was pounding him. I was like,
was he really?
Dude, slow down. You're gonna hurt yourself.
Maybe it's just the recreational stuff that he's off of.
I would hope so. I mean, look, getting sober is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So if you're a country fan and you're unsure of the Post Malone album, give it a listen. I'm not gonna say that there's a lot of songs that I'm gonna put in like heavy rotation, but it is through and through. Like, it's a country album. And like, it has all the big hitters, big names. You got Dolly Parton, Luke Combs,
Dwight Yoakam, or is that a separate project?
I think that's separate.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Tim McGraw is actually on that.
That's insane.
The intro track, which is actually pretty dang good, in my opinion. And then Hank Williams Jr., like, big hitters on that album. So I'd highly recommend it.
I'm excited, and I think I'm going to check it out. I think it's great that people are creating new music. Like, Nashville is alive, and I think the crossover stuff is great. The Beyonce thing, my hat's off to you. If you're making new music in this day and age,
Yeah.
and you're able to make a living doing it, I know that we're talking about A-list stars.
Right.
We're not talking about the
Right.
indie musicians, but my hat's off to you. Like if you can make a couple bucks
Yeah.
and raise your daughter or your son and doing this thing, God bless you,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
God
come on.
bless.
And even more so to people like Post Malone that like when he does a country crossover, like he went full in country. Like it is full on country,
Can't
covers the
wait.
spectrum like old school country to even some of your
Yeah.
like I don't know, bro country or
Yeah,
what
sure.
do they call
Why
it?
not?
Not bro country.
I know what you're
Um
talking about.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's just it's one of those things that I have recently dove into, and I think it's 100% worth a listen. So,
Hmm.
that's not why we're here. We are actually here to talk about this album. So,
Oh yes.
"Crashing Dream" by Rain Parade. This is an album that I didn't even know existed, or even a band that I didn't even know existed
Sure.
until Phil brought it up. But before we get into it, let's take a quick second to thank today's sponsors of the show,
Yes.
and we will be right back. Did you know that Judged by the Cover is brought to you by JW Creates? JW Creates is your graphic design source, specializing in cover art design, logos, websites, and so much more. As a musician myself, I fell in love with album covers, and this fueled a passion to visually tell stories and promote branding through the art of graphic design. To learn more, see some of my work, or if you're interested in connecting with me, go to jwcreates.com. Judged by the Cover is proud to be a part of the Pod Nougat Network. If you are a fellow podcaster looking for a partner to help give you the tools to make your show the best it can be, or just interested in connecting with other podcasters in the Chattanooga area, make sure to follow Pod Nougat Network on Facebook and Instagram, or learn more at chatpod.com. So that's chat with two T's, pod.com.
Guys, we're back. And Rain Parade, Crashing Dream. I'm just gonna paint a little picture for you if you
St-
indulge me.
Story time with Phil.
Story time with Phil. I moved to Hollywood in 1988. How old were you, Josh, in
I
1980?
wasn't even born.
See, that hurts me.
1989.
You were born in 89, a year later.
Yep.
Wow. All right, well, I'll put it into context then. 1988, I'd gotten into the Screen Actors Guild, so I moved to Hollywood, and that's a whole other story. But I got out there, and I got this bitchin' little guest house in the valley in Sherman Oaks. And if you know, you know. It was right off of Ventura Boulevard on the south side of the street, not the north side, because the north side of the street sucked. And I did eventually wind up living on the north side of the street.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wow. But I had this killer guest house
Yeah.
on Dickens, right off of Beverly Glen, and right on Beverly Glen and Ventura Boulevard. And this is the Tom Petty Ventura Boulevard. This is the boulevard he sings about in Free Fallin'. So I was living there,
Okay.
and it was amazing. Right on the corner was this famous record store called Moby Disc. What a
Moby
great name
Disc.
for a record
Yeah,
store.
come on.
And I would go in there and just whatever, like any record store, they're playing stuff. I'm like, oh, what's this? It sounds cool. I'd buy it. I was like delivering pizza at the time and acting from time to time. But I had enough money to buy some records, and I bought this on cassette.
Okay.
And I could not stop listening to it. And I don't even know if Walkmen were out yet. I must have had like a boombox or something, but I fell in love with it. It was just like what was happening on the scene at that time. They called this like what do they call it? Like Paisley Underground, the
Mm-hmm.
Paisley Underground, like psychedelic
Mm-hmm.
tinged music, and there was such a vibrant scene in LA, and it was just, and I wound up living in Laurel Canyon with an artist named Jeremy Toback who got signed to RCA, and he was a huge influence on me, as was this band. And we'll talk about Jeremy in another episode and hopefully
Yeah.
get him on.
Come on.
But I don't know what it is about this album. I love every song. It captured the mid 80s, and one of the founding members of this band went on to found Mazzy Star. And if you know about Mazzy Star, they had a huge hit in the 90s. Hope Sandoval was their lead singer. It's called Fade Into You. big hit.
Mm.
And right after that, I think they disbanded. But that just goes to show you, like, this guy was playing with, Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles early on before she was in the Bangles. So kind of like this, in a way, is like a template of things to come.
Okay.
Josh, you were saying you even heard grunge in it. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I'd never heard it. So over the last few days, I've kind of been listening through the record, and yeah, there's just and we may get into a little bit more about the kind of the band itself too, but yeah, there definitely was, and it wasn't like it was like conflicting, but I'm hearing like the intro to the first song, and it's got like kind of this gloomy, even with like the kind of heavy drums coming in. I was like, what are we getting into? And then it
Yeah.
almost gets into kind of a bright 80s, almost Boston,
Yes. Yeah.
Chicago-ish.
Yeah. Kind of chimey, some chimey guitars, a lot of layers, and a lot of vocal padding.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was just kind of this really cool. I don't want to call it necessarily like an experimental album, but it almost sounded like a band trying to figure out what their sound is or was.
Yeah, and I will say on this album, the guy who founded Mazzy Star had departed. So I always thought like, oh, this guy was in Mazzy Star who did this actual album, Crashing Dream. But no, I'm wrong. He had left. But I really think, as much as I agree with you, like, oh, this band is trying to find their sound. I think this was album number 3.
That
But
sounds right.
I don't know, man. I like every song. I mean, how often do you listen to an album and you like every song? I mean, are you listening to did you listen to the whole Post Malone album?
I am like 3/4 of the way through the deluxe edition, which has a million
Ton of
songs on
tracks.
it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah, a hundred
hard,
percent.
but and I bet you will wind up liking 75% of those Post songs.
Possibly. Yeah, I don't know that that's quite the album, but say take Mammoth for instance, like this Mammoth 2,
Yeah.
like that's an album that I can listen cover to cover.
I think you're a Mammoth super fan
I
too.
think
I
so.
know
We're
you
beyond
are.
that.
Yeah, yeah. And but I
But
love that. Like, we all have, like, you love Mammoth like that. I love these guys
yeah,
like Matt,
yeah.
like you love Mammoth.
Now
I love every song on here.
Now, as far as like the band's earlier music, have you gone back and listened to any of their earlier stuff, or have you basically kind of just camped out here?
I camped out here.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I don't want to ruin it for myself. I think I did. Here's the exciting news. This album is now available on the streaming platforms
Hmm.
where it was not. Like, I bought this vinyl, I think on Amazon or eBay, and there's like one left in stock, that old
Yeah.
chestnut. And I got it thinking like, oh, it's going to become out of print, and the label, for whatever reason, this is a major label album. I think it was yeah, this is on Island Records.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Island's probably not even around anymore. Well, I don't know why they didn't put it out on the
Well,
streamers, and now it's out.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know why either, but so I did just a little bit of research into the band. I mean, not a ton, but there was a lot of people talking online where it was really hard just to get physicals, even like CDs and stuff like that of
Yeah.
this album. And I don't know, after this album came out, the band disbanded.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that plays into it or not.
And they did a
Also,
reunion tour.
yeah, and when was that? Do
I
you
think it was like 2012. I think. And they just came out with a new album called Last Rays of a Dying Sun. It's the third studio album by the American band Rain Parade,
mm,
released through Flatiron Recordings and Label 51 on August 4th, 2023.
well,
First studio album since their reformation in 2012, and their first album in 38 years following Crashing Dream, which came out in 85. So this was out 3 years before I moved to Hollywood, went
right.
down to Ventura Boulevard to Moby Disc, got the cassette.
Yeah.
And I really think the cover of the cassette may have been this image, which is a rusted out vintage pickup truck in
Yeah.
the wash in like the LA River.
Yeah. And so do you remember like why? Why did you pick up that cassette?
Either a f- my brother was at Notre Dame that year, and he came to LA and he stayed in my pad, and we worked together at like a gelato place, and I was at the pizza place too. And I think maybe one of his college buddies named Jan Farrell who lived in Palos Verdes was into this band, and
Yeah.
maybe I think that's how I got the tip. Which isn't that how you would get the tip on music?
I mean, yeah, yeah. It's either a recommendation from a friend or, these days, social media plays a
Yeah,
big role into that.
or a podcast, hyping
Podcasts.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in some cases, not necessarily with this, but even like movies and stuff like that, like you hear a song, you go like, what's that? And
Yeah,
you can track it down,
I
stuff
feel
like
like
that.
this was a soundtrack for me as an actor when I moved to LA.
Yeah.
Like, I moved there in '88, and it turns out that was the year of the biggest writer's strike in Hollywood history. So I get to LA, like, I'm all stoked. I've got my SAG card, and they're like, "Oh yeah, buddy, the whole town is shut down." So
Wah,
it was
wah,
terrible.
wah.
I was super depressed.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet.
and I think this became the soundtrack to
Yeah.
my depression.
Yeah. So, have you ever done any like research into like what this album's about? Have you dug into like the lyrics or anything like that?
I,
There's
you
a reason
know,
I'm asking. But I'm
I
just curious.
haven't. I've just got my own personal, like,
Connection.
intimate connection with
Yeah.
it. Like, I love the song "It's Only Business," which is like
Mhm.
a beautiful, sad kind of ballad at the end. It almost sounds like this is what it's like on tour for the band, going
Mhm.
through towns. Um, no, I don't know. I didn't dig. It's really, this is just like, this is a chunk of my LA time as a young actor, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, it's etched in my memory forever.
And it just calls back to those memories and
All
that
of it,
time.
all of it.
I
Yeah,
love that. That's one of the greatest things about music is those kind of things where it like
yeah.
pulls you in, pulls those memories out.
And I wish I saw them live, but I didn't even know if they were doing this. Like, they were done, right? By the
Yeah,
time
because I don't
'88
think it
rolled
was.
around.
I don't think it was long after this
Hmm.
album came because it came out in '86. Is that right?
This was '85, they say.
'85.
According to
Yeah,
Wikipedia, it's probably on the back of this thing
yeah,
too.
yeah. So I think by that time they were done. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of curious about if you've listened to any of the previous stuff because I know at least the loudmouths online. A lot of them talk about how they really liked the first one or two albums
Yeah.
previous to this one,
Yeah.
because this one had what they say the most label influence because this was their first major label deal, and it was kind of the
Oh,
thing that
dude, did not know that.
yeah,
Oh, you know what? I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm such a pop centric
yeah,
person, and I love big label sound. I
yeah,
love that, oh, we did it at the Power Station in New York City. We recorded at Ocean Way in LA. I love those records,
yeah.
and I'm a consumer. And so, yeah, I did read like the first album was like critically maybe their better album.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
I don't care, Josh. I love this
No,
album.
and I'm not here to influence you. I just was curious.
This is like original Coca-Cola for me. I don't
Come
want
on,
any of the other crap.
get that junk out of
Yeah.
here. No, no, that's just curious because again, like I'm learning here. I had didn't know who these guys even existed.
Yeah.
And so since this is a podcast about cover art, let's chat about it. Not the strongest album cover. So there is this really cool image. This is the five guys in the band. I'm assuming,
Yeah.
and they're at the bottom of a pool. This guy, it looks like he's struggling to.
To live.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're kind of laying at the bottom of this pool. And then the font choices. So we have Crashing Dream kind of up here at the top in this kind of rustic. Is that the right word? Yellow
Yeah, or
font.
it's like courier. It's like a courier that's decayed, a
Decayed.
courier,
That's a
decayed courier
that's a
font.
good. And then this Rain Parade is just in kind of a funky yellow font as well. Um, the image is cool. I like the image. The coloring, it's a little too, and I think it's because it's like a pool, so it's got that aquamarine.
Yeah.
I feel like it really needs to be kind of a deeper, darker blue. I think
You
give
know
it more
what's
of a moody vibe. I think, but
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like when I was bringing this vinyl over here to the
yeah,
studio, I have it up on my wall in my media room where my daughter and I have a bunch of vinyl that we love, like on display, like in your place
yeah.
here. And I picked it off the wall and I'm like, man, this album cover sucks. And I really
Uh,
wish it was a better album cover.
right.
But like I think I mentioned to you earlier, I have a feeling like when I got the cassette at Moby Disc, I really think that was the cover. Like, I could be totally wrong,
Yeah.
but that image of the truck in the wash, That is so etched in my brain as, like, the cover of this album.
Yeah.
I have a feeling on the J, because I call it, like, a J sleeve
Uh-huh.
for the
Oh, where it like
cassette
wrapped
tape.
around
Yeah, it
kind of
wraps
that
around like a
back
J.
quarter.
Dude, I could be wrong. You could fact check me. I'm gonna fact check myself because I
Yeah.
actually want it on cassette again. I have a feeling that was it, and that is the lonely image that I like. That would
Yeah.
have been my A choice, and this would have been like I would have trashed this idea, and the fonts suck. What would you
Uh,
do in a case like
yeah,
this?
yeah. So before we get to that, I agree. I like this truck. I really wish that we could get like a full version of that photo because
It's cool,
that's
man.
cool. Yeah.
It's almost like underwater the way they
It-
change the color of it.
yeah, and I think because what I saw online, I found this, but it was really like poor quality.
Mhm.
I thought it was underwater, but no, it's just a decadal
We
truck.
should do you see who the photographer is? Does it say in that right above the Island,
So
Records logo, it
yeah,
might
art
say.
direction and photography, Brian D. McLaughlin.
"Hey, Brian, what's up, bud?"
Yeah, heck yeah. And then design is Brian D. McLaughlin and Lauren Sperling.
Well, see, I already just trashed the album cover, so he's not even gonna call me back.
So that guy, I think it's on that computer.
Yeah.
So Brian, he actually, one of his covers that's pretty big is one of the Cars' greatest hits albums.
Oh, interesting, okay.
Really cool one actually. Maybe one that we talk about in the future.
Oh, let's do talk about it.
Yeah,
Okay, so this guy had some obviously, this is an Island record, so he had some kind of
yeah. So I don't know what the
affiliation.
connection was
Yeah,
with the band
gotcha.
or the record label,
Ah,
but yeah,
okay.
this is a guy that had done many of them. So I too agree with Phil's thoughts on the cover. It's not the strongest album cover for an album that
Yeah.
has such strong feelings and stuff tied to it. And there is a lot of people that do love this. So my thought was, what would I do
Yeah.
as a an album cover designer? So like I said, I don't have an image of that truck. That truck would make a really cool. So
Yeah.
what I'm going to do is, or what I did was just play with this front image because the
Right.
image itself is actually pretty cool.
It
I like
is.
the feeling and especially the name Crashing Dream. Right? I
Yeah.
kept as I was like typing stuff in earlier this week. It was Chasing Dream is what I kept putting
Oh,
down.
yeah.
Crashing Dream.
That was great. It's a
You
great
know,
title,
yeah,
man.
where these guys are kind of they've crashed into the pool, and it's almost
Yeah.
kind of poetic because the dream did kind of
Yeah.
crash after this album.
As bands are wont to do.
Yeah. So I would keep the image the same, but I
Yeah.
really do think that it needs some like stronger
Ooh.
blues. It needs some
Dude, I like that already. It's got like a 70s movie vibe.
yeah, yeah. So I was trying to kind of feel the era and the theme. And what's kind of crazy is I kind of thought about like, what if this album came out in 2024? And literally
Ooh.
looking at this image, I feel like this is how kids dress these days, right?
Yeah, I can see
like,
that.
like it feels like just image wise that this could be an
Yeah, I
album
feel
from this
like
day,
my daughters are wearing like mom jeans and stuff. So, and
yeah,
I think that's probably going to change real soon, probably
right.
tomorrow.
Those cycles are moving
But you're
so
right.
fast.
I do see like very similar kind of dress.
Yeah, so I really wanted to just play on this idea of like crashing dream. So we've got this it's still kind of a rustic font, but it's kind of being like sucked down into the pool with the guys.
Ooh, I like that.
You like
What is
that?
that font called? You
Uh,
remember? That's okay.
we can put it on the screen,
Yeah.
maybe.
Because
Thanks for
I'm just
calling me
curious.
out.
It's got a movie vibe to it. And
Yeah.
now that you said that the pool is maybe draining and sucking that font down, that
Yeah.
title down, I see that. And it's really cool.
Yeah, and obviously yellow and blues play really well together in design, but it just in this kind of format, I didn't love it. So I went with almost just a really light teal color
Yeah.
for the fonts of the
Oh,
name.
so much better.
So we'll take these two and we'll put them side by side so you guys can check them out and let me know your thoughts. If you were to rethink, redesign, redo this cover, what would you do?
And also, can I just say, do listen to the album, even if it's not your genre, this like Paisley underground or psychedelic music from the 80s
Right.
in Los Angeles, particular to the LA scene at the
Yep.
time, which is true. Check it out, man, and just comment if you liked it or if you had a standout song on the album. It'd be cool to like hear what your thoughts are on it, and maybe you've discovered a new retro band that just released this on Spotify and all the other platforms.
Yeah, yeah, heck yeah. So, Phil, where people can do that is so you can find my page that's at JDub Creates on Facebook and Instagram. There will be obviously a post for this, so you can jump in the comments there. You can also find us online at jwcreates.com/slash judged by the cover podcast. You can also drop us a line at info@jwcreates.com. Also, we can put on the screen where to find this guy too. What do you know off the top of your hand? Handles.
My YouTube is at Phil Highland. I don't do much on there, but there's some old stuff like acting stuff and some of my crime shows. And then on Instagram, it's just at Phil Highland. And, because I'm old, LinkedIn, Phil Highland.
Yeah, yeah. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the JW Creates version of the Crashing
Yeah,
Dream.
yeah. I'm a fan of this JW Creates guy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on Crashing Dream?
I'm just glad it's back. And I will say, like, I know that, I know you really love digging for vinyl. I just,
Hmm.
I think in this day of streaming, I'm at least glad it's out now
Yeah.
because this was a disappeared record for me. I really did try to find it online. It was somebody in Japan put it on YouTube. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of listening to music on YouTube. I want to
Right.
share this, like, with my kids or my
Right.
brother or my buddies that I grew up with when I was living in LA. It's like, dude, check this out. Remember? I kind of want to share it. So I really think for me, I'm a Spotify guy. It's just
Yeah.
so easy to share music on Spotify. So I'm glad it's back. Great memories from LA, which was so different in the 80s as to what it is now. I don't know, man. That just makes me want to go back to like the Sunset Strip.
Come on.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, I guess final thoughts that one of the things we usually try to do is try to help younger bands and musicians kind of think about your own cover art projects.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I think one thing that we can kind of take from this, I think a lot of people think that with a label, you get better everything.
Mm.
And so, in this case, it may have been the thing that brought the band to an end. But also, not. I don't want to dig on anybody's design, being a
Do it.
designer.
Just
You know what I
do
mean?
it. Just do it. It sucks, man. I think
But
it's like an afterthought.
yeah, I kind of feel like it was just like we need something. Uh, just get it done. Take some time, think
Yeah.
about it, get connected with either a designer or we've talked about photographers and stuff like
Yeah.
that to really think
Or an
through.
artist, a painter.
Yeah, yeah, to really think through like the concept, and sometimes it is really good to have that outside perspective
Yeah.
that takes the song, takes what you're thinking,
Yes.
and helps break you out of like, because I think a lot of times as creatives we can get stuck in like, this is the image I've had in my head
Yeah.
about this thing forever, and getting that outside perspective that says, oh hey, but what about this? That's usually where the gold is at.
I agree. 100%.
So if you do need one of those people, jdbcrates.com. I would love to hear about your project. I'm passionate about album covers. It's the thing that got me into graphic design, and that's
Mhm.
also why we're doing a podcast where we talk about music and cover
And
art.
you know what? Seeing what you did, your repro of or your own creation, ideation of this album cover, because you're about to do an album cover for me. I'm
Mm,
excited to see
yeah,
what you're gonna do for me because I'm too close to the music myself. I'm just like, I'm curious what your take is gonna be when I put out this batch of new songs that I've been working on.
I'm pretty excited. I've got a pretty killer idea that I haven't shared with Phil yet. Uh, I'm excited about
I
that.
can't wait. I can't wait, man.
Well, hey guys, we appreciate it. Thanks for being patient with us. I
Thank
know it's
you.
been a minute since we've dropped one of these, but we've got more coming your way. We're trying to get better organized so that way we can be more consistent with things dropping. So yeah, I think the rest of the year, beginning of next year is really going to be a lot of fun. We've got some great ideas, great content that we're wanting to bring your way, and yeah, just really
Yeah.
excited about
Hey,
it.
tell a
So
friend too about us. Share
yeah,
if you like anything you heard in here. Or, tell a friend or give us some feedback. What can
yeah.
we do to make this a little more engaging for you?
Yeah, yeah, and we're always looking for um, album cover ideas to talk about. So if you either have a project of your own that you would like us to take a
Yeah,
look at, if you're brave enough to
that'd be
let us
cool.
critique it, send it our way. Also, if there's just an album cover that you love and you want us to dive into it and get you some more detail, we'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah.
So again, info@jwcreates.com or at jwcreates on Instagram and Facebook. Well, Phil, we've got another one of these to do,
Yeah.
so we should wrap this thing up,
Yeah. See you
and
guys.
we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, buddy. This was a good one. I appreciate you doing this
Yeah,
one with me.
yeah, come on.
Proud member of the Podnuga Network.